Shimelle Laine, and I'm here again with a new Sketch to Scrapbook page. Today's sketch includes 5 photographs, 2 4x6 landscape prints, and then 3 smaller square photos. I've used 2.5-inch square prints for the smaller images so that they'll add up to roughly half the page, and the 4x6 prints will be roughly half the page. But I think you could go a little bit smaller if you want to stay to exactly half, or you want to keep them in their quadrants, because of course 3 by 2.5 is going to be a little bit more than 6 inches. So just depends on the prints that you want. If you're printing square photos yourself, you can then decide, you can crop the image to a square first and then decide what size print you want to use. In this case, I had a bunch of 4x6 prints that were all really similar, and I wanted to zoom in on some of the details. These were taken at the top of a tower, and so these are the view looking down over the city. And so I had lots of these at 4x6, and I just wanted to crop in on a few details, and the 2.5-inch size was a really good balance for what I had in the pictures. So I'm going to alter the sketch a little bit so that these are going to take up a little bit more room to work with those particular photographs. And it just depends on if you already have the prints done and you need to work that way around, or if you're coming to the sketch first and then you're going to print the images, then you might want to print them a little bit smaller. Okay, so today I'm working with my supplies from the February Best of Both Worlds kit, but I'm also using photos from our backpacking trip, which means I'm going to put them on craft cardstock. If you're new here, all of the photos that I use in that particular set of albums, they all start on craft cardstock. The supplies throughout everything else is pretty much different, but they all have that in common. So I'm starting with that craft cardstock, which I've added for my stash, but then the rest of the supplies that I've pulled out are all from the kit. So I have the red zigzag print, which was American Crafts, some green stars by October Afternoon, and this red print is also October Afternoon. It's the one that looks like this on the other side. So today's design is one that's quite blocky, and everything is kind of color blocked or done in squares. But with this use of a scallop piece across the middle, I hope that that will soften the design and keep it from looking too boxy. So I'm going to start by placing my photos here on the side and cutting 2 boxes of pattern paper to fit the sketch. So the one that's going to go opposite the photos here, and then another pattern for the bottom. Then I'll use a third pattern to form this scallop strip across the bottom, or across the middle, and for that I'm going to use the bold red, so I can use the green and the softer red print in the other 2 boxes, and use the darkest of the 3 patterns to separate the 2. That's why it's darker here in the sketch. And that way I can also bring that pattern up here to the top to ground the accents that are going to stay in the top corner too. So I'll get all those pieces cut to fit, and then we can put it all together. With a blocked sketch like this, you have the option of keeping all of the corners very square for a really orderly look, or using a corner rounder on just the 4 exterior corners of the design to soften it a little bit. So I've just added that to those 4 edges, and then I've punched my scallop strip to go across the middle. And there's 2 options here too. You can bring this scallop strip in and have it be contained to just the box there, and then the craft cardstock would go all the way around the page, or you can leave it the full 12-inch width and divide that craft cardstock. And because the photos here I'm using are they're of the same event but quite a different style, I'm going to go ahead and let this border divide the whole page and just attach it right over the top, the full page width. And then I will repeat this red pattern at the top as well, and I'm not sure if I want to use it as a plain box or as another scalloped piece at this point, so I'm just not going to cut it just yet. We'll wait until I have a few more of the page elements down and then decide which would be better up here. Now this large scallop border punch I get a lot of questions about. It's this one by EK Success, which is called something like the double embossed scallop or something along those lines. And the reason it's confusing is because I use it just as a large scallop punch. But when you see the design, it has these little polka dots along the edge that are meant to be embossed. So the the solid line there is what cuts, and then these dots are meant to be embossed, little indentations on the circles. Well, what happens is that if you use a really lightweight paper and you punch really hard, then you get the embossed dots. But I don't. I use cardstock weight pattern papers, and I just punch as much as it takes to cut the design, and then I don't get the embossed dots, and that way I just get that shape that I want, and I don't have to worry about the extra detail of the embossing. So no big secret there, that's what I'm using, and I think it's still widely available at places that stock EK Success punches. Okay, so moving on from there, I'm going to go ahead and place my square photos in this gap here, making sure they're going to fit just. So I have, these were taken on the Petronas Tower tour in Kuala Lumpur, and I have the photos that we took of ourselves with the view in the background, and then these are photos that I took out the window. And I have some better photos of this view, so I'm going to do a facing page eventually that will show the view in a bit more detail. So these were kind of the outtakes. They were the less than perfect shots that I took from the viewing platform. So I'm just going to arrange those there. This one shows the actual building against the traffic, so that one is a little bit different than the other two, so I'm going to put that one in the middle to break up the similarity of the other two shots, and just arrange these in a line. Now, if you really like rounded edges, you could use rounded rectangles for all of these photos too, or you could use a small corner rounder to do just the 4 corners, or even just this one corner. But the reason I'm leaving it square is because my corner rounder is the same size that I've used here, and this is a smaller piece, so they wouldn't line up just right, and it would kind of bother me. So I'm going to leave all of the photos as squares here and keep that consistent. Okay, so now I'm ready to add my title and my journaling and figure out what embellishment I'd like to go in this space and up here at the top. I wanted to pause at this point and show you how sometimes the ideas as I'm working don't quite work and I need to make it a little adjustment. So I knew that writing on top of this busier pattern was going to be a little hard to read. So I had a look at my cut apart sheet for elements that I could use as journaling boxes. And this one was actually on a larger box with another color around the edge that wasn't particularly a color I wanted to bring into this layout, so I've just trimmed it down to just the gray and white journaling box. And then these two were together as one box, but I cut them apart as 2 labels and separated them on the layout. And that gives me a place that's much easier to read the writing. And then I went ahead and added my title. I had this title in mind because what I wanted to write about was not just where we were and what we were taking pictures of, but the fact that for the several destinations before this picture, we'd kind of been off the beaten path and hadn't run into a lot of tourists. And then we arrived here and we were at the biggest tourist spot in town, and it was kind of a shock to the system to be reminded that there were so many other people traveling and that we needed to queue up and wait for hours and hours, where the few days before we'd just kind of been hanging with the locals, as it were. So I wanted to take that aspect in my journaling, so I went with this title, Tourist HQ, and wanted to use the red letters since I have red in the layout. But with the red letters on the red busy pattern paper, you can't really read the title at all. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull off the letters and just place them below on the page so I won't lose them and I can see the space that they would take up roughly. And then I'm going to add another little something up here so that I have something below them that will give some contrast and make them easier to read. And since I've brought in this gray in the journaling box, then that makes my gray washi tape really useful here. Although this is gray and cream and those boxes are gray and white. So what I'm going to do is, instead of having the title so that it grazes the top of these boxes, I'm going to bring it up a little bit so that it's purposely separated. And then maybe I'll need a little bit of embellishment in between, or maybe it will be fine on its own. And I have this choice of, do I put it on an angle or do I make it quite straight? I think to contrast from the journaling boxes, I'll keep it straight at this point. And then I just pick up those letters and bring them back here, and now it'll be so much easier to read because they're not on top of red, so it's much easier on the eye. So sometimes you just need a little fix in the middle of the page when things don't go quite right, and washi tape is definitely something that's great to have on hand to help with those sorts of little conundrums. But this does mean that I want to make sure that I repeat this washi tape so that it doesn't look out of place here. So I'm automatically going to take it to 2 other places on the layout, and it may go to a 3rd one once by the time the page is finished. I'm going to bring it in here and run it off the edge of the page. Just wrap it around to the back. And again with this box. And I think if you've watched my videos before, you know I'm not a huge fan of having white and cream based elements on the same project. I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. I do think that if you've never paid attention to cream and white based papers before, and you always wondered if there was something that was a little bit off about the way your papers were mixing and matching, that if you do start to pay attention to that, then it can make an instant change. But I don't think it's a hard and fast rule. You can mix cream and white, but you just need to be aware of it when you're doing it and look at things like, can you include multiple shades of cream and white so that you have that little bit of variety. So I have a cream shade here that's darker than the cream in this paper. It's just the 2 papers here that have the cream are quite similar, and then I have the white here that's distressed with gray. So maybe I need to do a little something to bring all of those different tones together, and that might be as simple as adding a little bit of mist as a final stage, or just repeating things enough that your eye gets used to seeing that combination of shades of cream and white together. So that's a really simplified explanation, but I just thought that I would bring that up as I was working. I'm going to go ahead and get my writing filled in and then come back to the embellishment. I'm going to add something up here, and I'll add something on top of each of these spots with washi tape, which means I'm adding a little bit more embellishment than what was in the sketch because I've made my journaling more narrow than what's in the original design. Here's another way I could add in another shade of cream to mix in with all the different whites and creams. The letter stickers have 5 little red and cream scallop seal type stickers at the bottom. So I've used 3 of those and brought in one of those to each of the places with the washi tape. I did go ahead and add the red in the scallop at the top and repeat the washi tape here. And then I used the black postage stamp stickers. They're the same shade of cream as the labels because they're both Jenny Bolin stickers, but I wanted to bring in a little bit of black to the embellishment just to mix in with these shades of gray and black from the writing. So that gives me a little something that's the same in each area of embellishment. Each one is going to have that washi tape, the circle, and the postage stamp. But then I like to add something that's a little different. I have the badges from the Studio Calico set that I hadn't even cracked into yet, and I have this one, which is a star. Now they actually fit quite well on top of the seals if you wanted to have that layered effect of having something that fits right inside another element on your page. But in this case, I want to make sure I can include all those different shades of white and off-white, so I thought I would use it as a separate piece. And in that case, it may go best up here because this is going to be the lightest area of embellishment where these all have other things attached to them already. So I thought that I would give the fancier embellishment up here where there are not a lot of other page elements. But then I thought I like this grouping together as a 3 with 2 round shapes and 1 rectangle. It's a nice balance. So I thought I would bring in a little something else that's round to these other groupings as a background element here. And this is just the green that I used in the previous video that's from that Dear Lizzie Fifth and Frolic pattern paper. And I used a scallop circle punch, or not scalloped, pinked I guess, to punch each of those. And this is a slightly different green than what's here, but it's close enough that I like the two together. So I'm just going to add one of these to each grouping, knowing that I'm going to put something on top of it and quite a lot of it will be covered. So in this case, that means I'm going to put the star right over the center here. Now, I have used stars on the sketch, and now I'm going to use stars in the embellishment. I don't always use stars just because they're on the sketch. I tend to just use stars or hearts on the sketch to show you a place for embellishment. And then I could, of course, use more badges. I could use half the pack of badges on one layout. They would, they're colors that certainly go really well here, and there are even things that would match the theme. So that's one option, but I do like the idea of maybe being able to stretch the badges to more projects. So I thought I'd have a look at what else I have here in the kit that could work. I do have two different kinds of little star embellishments because there are red star stickers on the letter sticker sheet, and there are white asterisk stickers on the thicker sheet. So I think I'll add one of those to each area of embellishment. That gives me some smaller details, but I still need something that's going to go in the middle there, and it might be something that's different on each piece. So for one, maybe one of these label stickers would work well. I've already included the date, so I don't want the one that says date sticker, and perhaps this red. There's quite a lot of red going on in this group, but there's not a lot here. Maybe I'll move this one so that I can include this label sticker here. Pop that back over the top there. And then I need something for this one still. I'm not convinced that another label sticker might be the right thing, because if I go too far in this direction, I'm going to cover up my writing. So I'll keep looking for what would be the best bet there. Maybe one of the wood veneer pieces would be a good fit. Let's have a look. I can always change the color if I need something a little different. It's a different way to use them because I tend to place them more like this, where it's along the side of an element so that it looks like a tab. If I bring this in here, I'm not really convinced about the idea of putting a tab on top of the circles where you can see above and below. I'm not convinced that that's the best embellishment. I do quite like it when it's at the top of a photo or along the side of a photo like this, but I think I don't really have anything I need to label in this picture, and that's a little bit far from the embellishment here to work as one visual unit, so I don't think that's my best bet. I keep an eye out. Now, I thought I would use my stamp set here to fill in this gap, and that might lead me to something that would work well over here as well. So in this case, I have a few different words that could work. Or I have that arrow that could just point into the photos. I think in this case I'll use one of the word stamps here. That has given me the idea that I have this larger, heavier stamp over here. And I might be able to just stamp that in black right over the top of the two circles, and that might work really well. Of course, it also might go horribly wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'll stamp this one first. That's the less of a worry. It still could go wrong, but it's less intimidating than getting this one stamped just perfectly over two pieces. What I'll do is I'll stamp it there and give it a try. If it doesn't work, then I'll stamp it on another piece of paper, cut it out, and put it over the top, and you'll never know well, you'll know because you're seeing it here, but you'll never know when you look through my album that there's a mistake underneath. So I'll get my stamp block and some black ink. Because I'm stamping on top of this shiny sticker here, I think I'll use Stays-On to have a better chance of it not smearing. The Jelly Bean labels are more like a cardstock finish, so you could use any black dye ink, but I'll just use the Stays-On for everything so that it's nice and consistent. Okay, well, I lucked out and I was able to stamp this right over the top of the two circles with Stays-On ink, and it does look, the Stays-On stamps a little differently on the sticker than the paper, but it's definitely legible so that you can read it, and this stamp came out fine as well. So I just added another tiny little stamp up here at the top from the same set so that each would have something in common, but they are all different words. And then there's one final little element that I'm going to add to this page to make it match everything else in my album, and that's that this album with the craft cardstock, everything also has a camera motif somewhere on the page, and I don't have any camera motifs in this kit. So I've just grabbed one small wood veneer camera, and I backed the lens with some of the gray from the washi tape so that that would match, and I'm just going to bring that into this little grouping of embellishments. And then take one more of the white stars from the thickers and balance it out on the other side. And that's where I'm going to call this one done. Thanks so much for watching, and I'd love for you to give this sketch a try, but also stop by the blog and have a look at today's guest version of this layout, which also has some notes on how to take a regular 12 by 12 page sketch and adapt it to use in Project Life or divided page protector type layout. And that example is by SJ Dowsett. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks.